let's start. Let's begin. So hi, everyone. My name is Heather Monroe. I am an integrative psychotherapist who specializes in relational trauma. And I describe relational trauma as a consistent disruption in a child's sense of love and safety, both physically and emotionally in the family system. And so if we are human, we all have a form of trauma or injury within our childhood and throughout our lives. And those injuries, especially the ones in childhood, can create real attachment styles. And we tend to, in our attachment styles, which I'll go through just a quick review, our attachment styles are the way that we connect with other people, but also with ourselves and with the world. So attachment is a really important part of our makeup as human beings. And so that's why I wanted to take the second half of this two-part series in trauma bonding to talk about how we can start to heal our attachment style if we find that we're going into an insecure attachment. So let's begin. How to heal attachment wounds. And again, if you have questions, just put them in the Q&A and I will try and get through this in time to answer questions for you guys. So, like I said, we're going to be talking about the attachment styles that create trauma bonds. And just an overview of the slides, we're going to go into a review of the anxious, the avoidant, the disorganized. Then we're going to talk about the anxious avoidant relationship trap, a little bit about that cycle from last time. And then we're going to first start with healing the anxiously attached style. And then we're going to go to healing the avoidantly attached style. And then I'll get to questions. So let's do the quick review. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we talked a lot about it on in the last webinar. But so there's 4 types of attachment styles, right? Secure attachment, which if you're secure, you don't need to worry as much. It's not to say you do not have relationship problems, but you don't fear intimacy and you don't fear abandonment. That you're pretty steady in your sense of intimacy is a good thing. Interdependence is something that you believe in, which is different than codependence. I can do a whole webinar on that. Maybe I will next time. But if you have these 3 insecure attachment styles, then you get a little bit into murky waters in relationship. So the first insecure attachment style would be the anxiously attached attachment. And so people who are anxiously attached, we tend to be boundaryless, meaning that we are connected to people, but we are not protected from other people's feelings, thoughts about us, and beliefs. Things tend to come into our orbit and we just grab onto it. To be boundaryless is to feel untethered. So a lot of anxiously attached people, we feel like there's not a ground beneath us sometimes when we're boundaryless. We also, anxiously attached people tend to have a lesser than self-esteem. So basically, we devalue ourselves in relationships. We believe subconsciously or sometimes consciously or subconsciously that we deserve to take up less space in a room, that we that our inherent worth is less than other people's inherent worth. And so we come from a place of less than all the time. The other thing with less than self-esteem is so we either devalue ourselves, but in order to get back up to a neutral self-esteem or maybe feel good about ourselves, we then tend to devalue another person. So greater than and less than self-esteem is like different sides of the same coin. So anxiously attached people tend to have less than self-esteem. We present in relationships, this is important, we present in relationships with the fear of abandonment, right? But underneath that fear of abandonment is actually a fear of intimacy. because there is a sense of we don't want to be a part of a team that we're chosen for. So after and this is why we can flip-flop between being, if we're in a relationship with someone else that's anxiously attached or even securely attached, and they have staying power and they feel like they can stay with us and they adore us, we can be repelled by that. We can feel like, ugh, like turned off by that in relationship. And so moving to the avoidant insecure attachment. Avoidants are basically the opposite of anxious. So avoidants are highly independent, islands to themselves, boundary-full. So we as avoidants are protected, but we're not connected. We have a wall, like energetic walls that we build around ourselves so that we cannot get hurt, right, in relationships. So with this wall, we are protected from other people's feelings and beliefs and ideas, but we tend to not be able to empathize with others. We have a hard time just being in connection. Like connection feels a little intolerable to us. And I'll go into that in the healing process a little bit more. Our primary fear as an avoidantly attached person is intimacy. So we are scared of being intimate with someone, but underneath that fear of intimacy is abandonment, is our fear of abandonment. Because what if we let someone in? What if we are vulnerable and show our underbelly? What would happen to us if we created vulnerability? They would leave. Just like our parents were not able to stay with us and be emotionally available for us most, if not all of the time. So we don't want to repeat that wounding. We want to stay really safe and away from that. So we tend to be highly independent and not connected. We also tend to have a greater than self-esteem. So avoidantly attached people can subconsciously or consciously devalue other people in order to always stay on top, like always feel greater than. So just like, but there's a fall from grace with a greater than self-esteem. It's like, I'm greater than you until I mess up. And then there's a fall from grace and I feel less than everybody else. So greater than self-esteem is a little bit based on performance and how well I perform to the outside world. If you want to, like less than self-esteem people, we know that we have less than self-esteem. Like it's pretty obvious. It kind of like perpetrates our entire reality, kind of walk around feeling like less than most of the time. But with greater than, it's like more polished, I like to call it. It's a little bit more skilled than the less than self-esteem person. So someone with a greater than self-esteem, one way to figure out if a person has a greater than self-esteem, ask them how they feel about themselves when they mess up. Like when there is public scrutiny or they mess up in front of someone. Because most of the time there will be an immense amount of shame and like a sense of falling from grace for that person. Now, the last insecure attachment style is the disorganized attachment. And this webinar doesn't really focus on disorganized attachment as much, or actually it doesn't focus on disorganized attachment. It's because, but let me tell you a little bit about it. Disorganized attachment is, with insecure, anxiously attached and insecure, avoidantly attached, it's very predictable. Like the behaviors and the pathology and how someone is going to react to intimacy or react from being pushed away is pretty spot on and predictable. With disorganized attachment, it's completely unpredictable. Like 1 second the person is submissive, the next second they're aggressive. 1 second they yearn for, they feel like they can't get enough, they can't get close enough to you. The next second they're totally repulsed and repelled by you. So there is like an unexpectedness to them. You cannot predict their behavior. It's very, very chaotic. And that is when they come from a family where there is abuse, to the point where the family system, it oscillates between safety and terror. So the caretakers are usually the ones who are the abusers, whereas with an anxiously attached person, we become anxiously attached when our parents or caretakers got it right sometimes, like, but not the majority of time. Okay, so they got it right. Like sometimes they were attuned to our needs, sometimes they could emotionally meet us, but not all the time. So we would cling to them even though they were causing us pain. The avoidantly attached people, we come from a family where our parents could not meet our needs. They were pretty much never attuned to our needs. So they could never meet our emotional needs. And when we were little, our physical needs for most of the time, they never got it right. So we just gave up, right? We just gave up and started to meet our own needs, which you can't as a child. So you start building up walls and protecting yourself and thinking that you're greater than other people in order to create this barrier to wall you off from pain of people leaving you and abandoning you like your parents did. So let's go to the next slide. And we will get to, so this is an anxious avoidant relationship trap. So what we discussed last time were the 2 cycles, and I've kind of just like pinned them down for you in a very succinct way with these bullet points. So it's a complete roller coaster of emotions. You know, there is an intensity there where like when it's good, it's so good. And when it's bad, it is so incredibly bad. We go from peaks and valleys. We go from our dark night to sunshine. It's just, there's so much unpredictability, and our nervous system, that's the other thing to understand, is like your nervous system is so jacked up from an anxious avoidant relationship that later on you start to feel like this is normal. Like this is what love feels like. It just feels like I'm always in fight or flight. And so that can confuse us when we find a secure partner. When a secure partner approaches us, we might not be as like madly, wildly attract, that pull towards them won't feel natural to us. But that is just because our nervous system has been so jacked up by this roller coaster of emotions. Both people's inherent worth in the relationship, both the anxiously attached and the avoidantly attached, both people's inherent worth does not come from within. It comes from without. So, so to say a little bit more about that, my inherent worth and all of your inherent worth, I know this to be true. Our inherent worth is no greater and no less than anyone else's inherent worth in this world. And so when we come from a less than self-esteem or a greater than self-esteem, we're messing with our inherent worth in one way or another, whether it's up or down. The only thing stable in anxious avoidant relationship is that there will be instability. Like that is the only thing that we can predict in that relationship, is that it's going to be completely unpredictable. This can also be true with friendships, by the way. This isn't just about intimate relationships. You can have this with your friends. If somebody triggers your trauma, if somebody triggers your attachment wound, it will do that to you. There's constant fighting and constant bickering because you never get to what you're really fighting about, right? It's always like these tiny little things and tit for tat and arguments, and you don't even know what you're fighting about, because the deeper issues, right, which is for the anxiously attached, I want to get closer, and you keep pulling away. And the avoidantly attached is, that's because you want to get so close. I feel so smothered by you all the time, right? Your needs smother me. So there is a constant fighting over things that aren't really talking about the issue, the deeper issue at hand. The other thing is that the inner circle, being a part, the anxiously attached, being a part of the avoidance inner circle is a very lonely place to be in relationship with them, because they always hold you at arm's length, right? And they can be incredibly They can be incredibly dismissing and unable to meet your emotional needs. So there's a sense of like being in the inner circle when you finally get there is an incredibly lonely place to be. And the other thing is that there is ambivalence, like incredible ambivalence around the relationship. And that's kind of what you need to tolerate and hold when you're dealing with an avoidantly attached person who isn't in recovery from it. Is it there's never a there's never there's an avoidance of making it so that there's clear cut and there's clarity within the relationship. That's what I'm trying to say. So let's get to healing, shall we? Now that we know the mess that is these relationships that we can get into. So healing the anxiously attached style. I'm gonna, some of this is going to be talking about, so this is about awareness in the relationship, and this can be in a friendship, in a mentorship, or in the intimate relationship. But becoming aware of these, it's called in attachment science, these are called activating strategies, right? These strategies activate our attachment system, which activate our anxious attachment system. So one thing that we do is the obsession with the other person. There's an obsession around what they're doing, what they're feeling, what they're thinking. So there's almost like a hyper focus or hyper vigilance around our partner or around our friend, especially when our anxious attachment style is triggered. When they push us away, it triggers our attachment style, which, by the way, is the natural order of things. When we, back in the day when we were living in tribes and, there were saber-toothed tigers and times were much, much harder, our attachment systems told us when we weren't safe and that we need to get back to attachment. So our wiring is exactly the same as it was back in the day. We need to feel safe in order to survive, right? So when an anxiously attached person's attachment system is triggered, we are going to always want to be close to the other person, obsess about what they're thinking, how we can get closer in some way. What have we done wrong? What's wrong with us? All this stuff. The other thing that we do is we only think about the good. So when we look back at the relationship, or let's say when we have that lapse where there's a break in the relationship and we have a little time from the toxic relationship, we'll look back at the relationship like only remembering the good stuff. There's like this feeling of nostalgia. And part of that only remembering the good stuff is our sense of less than, like devaluing ourselves in order to see that person in a different light than they actually are. And that leads to the pedestal. We tend to put people that we are attached to, that we love, that we care about, in our anxiously attached system. When our anxiously attached system is triggered, we put them on this pedestal. And again, that speaks to our less than self-esteem. So they're God, they're amazing, and we don't quite measure up. And I say this like this is also a part of the healing process for anxiously attached people who aren't in relationship. To be aware that we do this with people is going to be really important to our healing process. So if I'm an anxiously attached person and I feel myself putting someone on a pedestal, maybe it's a teacher, maybe it's a new friend, maybe it's a partner. When I feel myself doing that, I catch myself in it. Oh, I'm doing that thing. And what you start to do is you try and create and make them bite-sized. So this is a place in therapy that you can really work with clients or with your therapist. Like, how do I make people bite-sized for me? How do I make them the right size? Because right now they're God, they're my everything. And where do I stand with that? So a great way in therapy to create the right size of somebody is to think about them, their humanness. Like, where are they human? right? And that doesn't mean that we put judgment on their humanness, but nobody's perfect. So where do their imperfections show up, you know? What do we value about them as humans? What do we value about them as humans instead of what do we worship about them? Does that make sense? The other thing is it was what I've talked about before, is the anxiety relief. So one of the activating strategies that our system, our anxiously attached system, uses is that when we obsess and fixate on somebody and they push us, the person that we're fixating on is the one who's pushing us away, that means that they're the only ones that can make us feel better. So the problem becomes our solution, right? So it becomes about, I need to get close to this person because when I feel close, when they finally come back to me, I feel like I can breathe again. So part of the work and part of the healing is actually a lot of grounding work. So it's about being in our body, ways that we can feel calm, right? And deactivate that. So one kind of biohack that I really like to do with clients, when we put our hands on our chest, and it's better if you can get skin to skin, when we put our hands right on our heart, it actually is a way for us to release oxytocin into the body. And we know that oxytocin is it's the love hormone. It's what makes us feel bonded and connected. So putting our hand on our heart, right? And listening to our heartbeat, right? Feeling our heartbeat, just sitting there for about however long it takes till you start feeling grounded. Then on top of it, right? On top of keeping your hand on your heart, you say an affirmation, or you say what you need to hear right now in your anxiety, right? Sometimes it's, I'm here, I've got you, you're safe, you're good enough, I'm never gonna leave you. Sometimes it's good to like talk to the anxiety like it's not a part of you, right? So it separates us from that anxious attachment. So that is just a quick biohack for anxiously attached people. So one of the ways of healing is doing a lot of grounding work with a therapist or in your own healing journey, doing guided meditations. I would not start for an anxiously attached person to advise them to sit in silence and meditate on their own. Anxiously attached people, especially when they're activated, they need guidance from the outside, right? They need somebody to guide them through calming themselves down. This is why this is so effective. It's something that they can do on their own. Another thing they can do on their own, though, is use guided meditations. So guided meditations are ways that they can listen to someone's voice and get to a place of calmness on their own. And then they can work up to doing their own meditation work. So grounding work is going to be incredibly important to anxiously attached to our healing process. The other thing is, like, when we have an anxious attachment towards another person, there's this feeling of like, this is my one chance for love, right? This is it. Like, there's never going to be anything else because I'm not blank enough, or because there's this sense of this person is the oasis in my desert, right? So that is a place where we can cognitively start changing that belief system. So when we catch ourselves doing that, when we catch ourselves starting to think about that other person as the one chance, right? The one chance belief. This is my only chance at love, that kind of thinking. That is when, again, we can start reframing that thought. Like, you are going to have more chances at this. You will not be alone, right? You will find somebody else who deserves you. Again, if you can do this with releasing that oxytocin, it's going to be more helpful and it's going to sink in faster for you. So again, using that to, again, reframe that thought of the one chance belief and bring in some abundance, right? There's plenty of people that are going to find you worthy. The other thing of an activating strategy for us anxiously attached people is we are really good at staying in miserable situations. And that is because when our parents disempowered us or only sometimes met our needs, right? We clung to them because it was our survival. Our survival as children depended on clinging to the ones that were causing us pain, emotional pain. And so that's just to take the blame out of it and to understand, like, of course you do that. Of course we are more prone to staying in a miserable situation because we don't trust that we can take care of ourselves, right? That we can fulfill that emotional need now because we are no longer children and we are adults, and we have inner resources that we can draw upon. So the fact that when we realize that we're staying in misery and that we have a really high threshold for pain, much more so than the avoidant, right? So when we realize that we have a high threshold for pain, again, it's working on that self-esteem and building those inner resources around resiliency and around walking away. Can you just quickly go back, Ashley, and show that other slide that we just did? Yeah. So staying in misery. So it's about cultivating those inner resources, tolerating emotional discomfort, with somebody else, right? This is why therapy is great for attachment styles. Tolerating that emotional discomfort with somebody else who's going to guide us through the process so that then we can guide ourselves through the process. Like I said, interdependency is how we are wired as human beings. We are supposed to be interdependent. It's codependency, right, which becomes toxic. But what we cannot do by ourselves, we are shown through relationships with other people. And this can also not just be a therapist, this could be a friend of yours, someone who doesn't trigger your anxious attachment style, somebody who you know is going to be there for you. You can call in these times and just talk through the anxiety with them and recognize the fact that you are staying in a painful situation and that you don't want to. So let's go to awareness of protest behaviors. So within the relationship, so if you are, and let's keep this slide on for like 3 minutes. So awareness of protest behaviors. So these are the behaviors that anxiously attached people do in the insecure relationship. Okay, so this is what we do in order to have our partner connect with us, right? And they're avoidant, so they don't like to connect, they don't like intimacy, so we get more and more desperate for connection, right? So excessive attempts to connect means like texting or calling many times during the day, like many more times than like what would seem appropriate to somebody. Because again, like I said, when our anxious attachment style is triggered, it feels desperate, like we need to connect with them. It's very hard to stop ourselves in that moment. So protest behaviors are, we must connect at all costs, and we tend to text 100 times or call many, many times, or even go by their house. Like there's just an excessive attempts. Another thing that we can do is we try to show them what it feels like to be us, right, in the relationship with them. So I like to call this like role playing. So we role play the avoidance. So all of a sudden we'll withdraw from the relationship, like, or from the conversation. We can withhold love from them, or withdraw our presence, like leave the room or something, in the hopes that they will come after us, right? In the hopes that they will call us back. So we hang up on them in the hopes that it will elicit some form of something from them, right? Like some form, some sign, like show me that you freaking care here. You know, these are all desperate attempts. The other thing that we tend to do is that we tend to keep score in relationship. So there's a bit of like a tit for tat. Because we are so hyper focused on the other person, And we also know that emotional memories, right? Memories that are emotional are ones that we remember much more than memories or daily chores and things like that. But because our nervous system is wired towards anxious, we are going to have much more emotional memories. So we are going to know all the times that they didn't contact us, all the times where they didn't show up, all of that. So we're keeping score, right? Then we can also act hostile to them in ways like picking fights or being like really short, really snappy, saying things that again are supposed to elicit response, but they just act as hostility. Threatening to leave is a really big one, like in a marriage where there's avoidant and anxiously attached marriage. The divorce word tends to get thrown around a lot. And the thing is like once that word is thrown out in a relationship, or maybe it's not divorce, maybe you're just boyfriend, girlfriend, but once that word is, I'm going to leave you, this isn't working, or, boyfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, boyfriend, girlfriend, girlfriend, whatever, however you identify. Once that word is thrown out, it can't be taken back, and it kind of lends itself to the possibility, right? So it's a way for us, again, to try and connect. We also can be manipulative. We are, again, just trying to connect, trying to figure out how we can get their attention, but we can do that through really manipulative ways. We validate that manipulation because we're in so much pain and they deserve it. Like there's that justification. And then the other way is that we'll try to make them jealous. We tend to create situations to test their loyalty to us, or test like if they have any emotion or feeling towards us. It's a way, and all of this is because of ineffective communication, because we're scared of what they're going to think or what they're going to say. So if we go to the next slide, let's go to next steps. So next steps, one is recognizing intensity versus intimacy. So this is a really big one. Like I said about the nervous system, we're so used to going on this roller coaster ride and being in fight or flight mode that we don't really know what intimacy feels like. And intimacy has a stability about it. It has a staying power about it that we might find boring once we're in a securely attached relationship. Like there's not that excitement that there was in all these insecure relationships, but in that security and in that that flow of intimacy, we also find our own security. So this is the good news for anxiously attached people. Out of the 3 insecure attachment styles, anxiously attached people are shown to be the most receptive to becoming secure. And that's because usually with anxiously attached people, what it takes the most, right, for us is for someone to communicate effectively, to show up when we need them to answer our texts, to define the relationship, to not be ambiguous, to say connecting and loving phrases to us, and to always kind of most of the time step up to the plate when we need them to. So really anxiously attached people are going to do the best with securely attached people, because that is innately what a securely attached person is going to do, just by being themselves, because they're not scared of intimacy. So the anxiously attached person, once they feel secure, they calm down and they don't need to continue to try and be anxious anymore. So in relationship, anxiously attached people can heal the I would say with the greatest ease. out of the 3 attachment styles. The other thing that we need to remember with if we're anxiously attached is that we tend to be impulsive. We tend to have to behave and act on our feelings because our feelings feel so big. Because when our anxious attachment style is triggered, it feels like it is our life, our survival depends on us getting in touch with this person or them making us feel better. So a really important thing to remember with anxiously attached is to not act on our impulses, to learn how to kind of sit on our hands and not act out on the nervous system and on the feelings that we're having. So again, that grounding work is going to be essential. Also, calling other people when we feel like acting out, we call people that don't activate our anxious attachment style. So we call a safe friend, call someone to help us sort it out so that we aren't going to that person to put a Band-Aid on it. Inherent worth. So a big part of working with inherent worth for anxiously attached people is recognizing not fixating, learning how not to fixate on how other people see us, but how we see them. Like, we're so concerned about how the avoidant sees us that we don't take a second to step back and see, hold on, but how do I see this person? Like, how do I see this person in front of me? Are they fulfilling my needs? Are they making me feel special and that I'm important to them? So the inherent worth work is going to be about, one, realizing when you're fixating on the other person and trying to turn that back to yourself and asking yourself the same questions. Is this person making me feel safe? Is this person fulfilling my needs, right? The other thing is learning to effectively communicate our relational needs in relationships. So anxiously attached people, we tend to, because we are hyper-focused on other people's needs, and how we can fix them in order to connect, we tend to enter relationships needless and wantless. We are needless and wantless. That is how we show up in relationship. And we show up in that relationship in order to keep that person, right? So if we're needless and we're wantless, then we are the perfect person for an avoidant, for the avoidantly attached, because needs are weak to an avoidantly attached person. Now, we can sense that in them, so we show up needless and wantless for them. If we are to effectively communicate and find a secure partner, or find an avoidantly attached person that wants to work on their avoidance and be in recovery from it, we need to come in as ourselves, and we need to effectively communicate what our needs are. So this is as simple as, I need you to call me back. I need you to at least text me, I'm in a meeting, I'll call you, I'll call you in an hour or something, but I need something. I can't have hours and hours and hours of you not acknowledging my existence when I ask you a question, right? When that person, I need clarity in a relationship. So I need this defined, right? I need to know if we're together or we're not together. I need to know if you feel the same way about me as I feel about you. The scary thing about this is that when we effectively communicate our needs, they might not get met, and then we might have to walk away. So then we have to work on asking for what we need and knowing that we deserve the emotional needs. If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A and I'll try and get to it, because I want to get to the questions that we have. So effective communication is absolutely key to the healing process for anxiously attached. So was this clear? I hope it was clear for you guys for the anxiously attached. And we will then move on to healing the avoidantly attached, style. So let's go to some of the ways that the avoidantly attached person stays protected but not connected to their partner. So these are what attachment science calls deactivating behaviors. So, oh, by the way, PSA about the deactivating behaviors. Anxiously attached people also sometimes use these behaviors in order to leave the relationship. Like sometimes, and we'll go through them, but sometimes it's for self preservation that anxiously attached people will go into these deactivating behaviors in order to like not feel like they're going to run back into the avoidance arms. So deactivating behaviors. A big one with avoidance is ambivalence. As avoidance, we do not like clarity, right? So because clarity on a relationship, like telling somebody where they stand with us, or even like there's even something about, we aren't clear about anything. Like we tend to, not anything, but like most things in relationships. So we'll make, we won't make clear plans. We won't tell someone clearly what we're doing. There's just like, there's this sense of ambivalence also. Sorry, that's ambiguousness. But ambivalence, there's an ambivalence around the relationship that an anxiously attached person can feel in their bones. And if you've ever been in a relationship with an avoidantly attached person, you know what I'm talking about. There's almost a sense of, do I matter to this person? Like, how do they feel about me? So again, there's an ambivalence around the relationship. There is a big focus on imperfections with avoidantly attached people. It is how we are protected and not connected, how we don't fully give ourselves into the relationship. And this is what I'm talking about. The anxiously attached person can do this as well in order to like preserve themselves too. So we start nitpicking, we start looking at the person's needs, we start, especially imperfections around weakness, like what we see as weak. So a part of the healing process for avoidantly attached people is catching ourselves doing this. We catch ourselves devaluing others or focusing on others' imperfections. And it's important for us to be self-reflective in that, to first ask if this is something that we find intolerable in ourselves, right? That it's something, imperfection is something that we find intolerable for us, right? The other thing that's really important in the healing process for avoidantly attached people is when we find ourselves focusing on imperfections, we need to go back to the reframe and start focusing on all the good things about this person, like all the things that kind of keep us interested and keep us intrigued and that we admire about that person. So the other thing that we tend to do is we have the X complex, where we compare our current partner with the X, right? So there's something that happens with avoidance. It's really interesting. It's like we can't see our partner clearly until we leave the relationship. And then there's this clarity of how beautiful that person was and how like it's like we just see them clearly. And it's not, we might not want to go back to them, but we don't see them as this like with all the imperfections that we were seeing before. So when we get into a new relationship, we start comparing the person we're in relationship with to our ex. So there's like all this stuff around ex partners and well, she's not, this person isn't like this person. And, this person was so much better than this. Other thing that we can do is we can flirt with other people, which is pretty self-explanatory, but incredibly hurtful to our partner. Again, and it adds to the ambivalence around the relationship. It's like we're always keeping our options open. Now there's a way, and some excuses are like, I'm just a flirt. Like that's just how I am. I'm just flirtatious. But there's a difference between being contained, like being open and contained around being gregarious and open to, and laughing at other people's jokes, but having a containment around that where you don't give the impression that you're not coming from your second energy center, your second chakra. Like you're not coming from your sex organs. It's not, there's not uncontained sexual energy coming from you in your laughter. When you're flirting with others, and you are uncontained sexually, it's an energy that you give out that your anxiously attached partner can feel in a second, and that actually the person you're flirting with can feel as well. But it is energetic, and it's a containment here. Susan put the question in the Q&A, and I'm hoping to get to it. So big thing, we avoid connection phrases, and this is something that your parents could have done with you too. Like my caretakers never said I love you, but I knew they loved me. Like I knew my parents loved me, but we never said it. We never said I love you. We never said connecting phrases in my family. So you might be very aware that like this is a part of who you are. You don't say I love you. You don't say how much another person means to you, because it was never mirrored to you. So there's an avoidance of connection phrases, and that keeps you, again, it keeps you protected. So a part of your healing, a part of our healing process as avoidance is to take one brick down by one brick by saying things like, I care about you. You mean a lot to me. We don't need to go to love, but like start expressing yourself a little bit more and what this person means to you. We like to think about the impossible future, like why all the reasons this is going to be impossible with this person. And again, in the healing process, it's going to be about thinking about all the reasons why a future could happen as well. So holding these two things together, right? Like, this person, they are caring and loving. Ashley, can you turn back to the slide? We'll just turn back to that slide until I'm done. So this person is caring and loving, and they can feel smothering at times, right? Holding both these truths is incredibly important for both attachment styles and as just human beings, is that we can hold two opposite truths to be true. And when we hold those two, like in truth, that they both are true for us, it creates a tolerability around the one that feels intolerable, just in itself. So another thing that we do that's deactivating is we check out when our partner is talking to us. So this can be when our partner wants to connect. We start to look at our phone. We, I don't know, we get busy. We turn on the television. We start thinking about so if we're a little bit more skilled at it, we could like think about other things while they're talking to us. But there's a sense of like our guard is up and we're checked out and we're not really there. And again, that anxiously attached person can really feel that from us. So part of the process of healing is about really being present. And when you feel like you can't be present, right? Like, I just got to do this thing really fast. Effectively communicate that. Tell that to your partner, but make sure you circle back around for the connection. I'm going to get to that in the next slide, but like de-escalating is going to be really important in like healing the relationship. So other thing is secrets. That's pretty, I mean, that's you can imagine what I mean by secrets. It means that we tend by nature to withhold information in the relationship, and we don't even know, it's subconscious. It's like sometimes you might not even be aware of it. But again, there's a lack of clarity around things that we do, around where we're going, who we're meeting up with. It's like we're holding this information, we're withholding information from our partner, which is making them more anxious, right? So again, we're creating protection for ourselves, but we're also making a muck of the issue here. And we're making them more anxious and more needy, which we can't stand, and we're repelled by, and then we push them away more. The other thing that we can do as avoidance is we can avoid actual physical connection. So we can withhold sexual intimacy, but not just sexual intimacy. And then we play that out outside of the relationship, right? So we won't be having sex with our partner that we're in a relationship with, but we'll be having an affair outside the relationship. But it can also be as simple as holding hands. Like when our partner goes to hold our hands, our instinct is to pull away. So let's go to the next slide, because I'll talk about what's really helpful with that physical touch. Okay, so we've talked about awareness, right? Awareness is key. So I really went through the deactivating behaviors and becoming aware of all those deactivating behaviors. When we're doing it, catching ourselves, and then trying to reframe, do the opposite, etc. The other thing is recognizing interdependency within relationship. It is not normal. And I say this with all the compassion in the world. It really is not normal to be an island onto yourself as a human being. Not only is it not normal, it's not sustainable. And you are going to feel very lonely. And avoidant people feel very lonely a lot of the time because they create that island onto themselves. We are, as humans, we are made to be interdependent on each other, not codependent. And I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding between codependency and interdependency. Codependency is kind of taken over the healing professional world as like this thing to avoid. And I think what we do is we don't explain to people what interdependence means. And that's a healthy dependence on another person. It's an in-between of feeling like I can't live without you and I'm okay on my own. There's a sense of I love you and you fulfill some of my needs. And I know that part of my well-being is dependent on how you feel, right? And how connected I am to you. So there's mutual support. So part of the healing for the avoidantly attached person is figuring out where you need support in your life and then asking for that from your partner. And this takes a lot of courage. And it also takes a deep dive into your body and into, and when I say into your body, I mean, like one way that we can biohack our support, where we need support, is figuring out where we tense up. When we talk about work, do we tense up? When we talk about being vulnerable, do we tense up? What does it feel like in our body to feel like we need someone's support in a certain area? And that can clue us in to where that might be. We are going to do the best as avoidantly attached people. We are really going to do the best with securely attached people and partners. This is because securely attached people, they're definitely going to have needs, which are going to repel us. But they aren't, it's not going to, we aren't going to activate their nervous system the same way that we activate an anxiously attached person's nervous system. So when an anxiously attached person's nervous system is activated, it is like, it's overwhelming, and understandably, it's overwhelming, and it can feel smothering. And then that triggers our fight or flight, our nervous system of wanting to get the heck out, right? So a secure partner is going to be the best one for us. Distractions. So this is what I'm talking about with physical touch. So a distraction strategy, there's research around this, that when an avoidantly attached person is distracted, they are more likely to engage in physical touch with their partner. So for instance, like taking a walk, you might feel better if you're distracted on your walk to hold your partner's hand than if you're just like sitting down, right? If you're, you guys can figure out your own different distraction strategies, but some examples would be like taking a walk, playing a game, doing something active with your partner and having physical touch involved. It doesn't feel as like repelling as it does when there's like real intention for it. Cooking. Oh my gosh, that's such a great one. Yes, cooking. That was a great example. So again, inherent worth, knowing that your inherent worth is no better than your partner's inherent worth, that you guys are on equal playing fields here. So a lot of work around self-esteem for avoidantly attached as well. Don't play games and communicate effectively are going to be one and the same thing. So if you can communicate effectively that you need your space, right? Or that you want to listen to the person, you understand that they want to connect with you, and you also want to finish this task or this, thing at work, or looking up something on your phone before, and then circling back around, right? So communicating effectively what triggers your avoidance too. That's going to be huge, is that you are going to have to work at being vulnerable, because saying that your avoidance is triggered is being vulnerable. It's showing that you have a crack in your armor too. So if somebody, if someone is calling you, texting you 50 times, to effectively say to that person, like, this is really triggering to me, right? But also say, I'm sorry that I didn't text you back. I will try to do better next time. And when you text me 50 times because I didn't text you back, that's super triggering to me, and it makes me not want to text you back. It scares me, right? The intensity scares me. So all of this is part of being vulnerable, your vulnerability. So your bravery and your courage as an avoidantly attached person is going to come from opening up, like showing your underbelly to your partner. And you can do this in many different ways, but one way would just be talking about your past a little bit, talking about your childhood, what that was like for you. If you have a bad day at work, going to your partner and saying, I had a bad day at work. This is why. So really, it's also about like communicating what you're feeling inside. Now, your partner's going to be, they're anxiously attached to be really good at kind of honing in on your moods. But part of your vulnerability is going to be reflecting on what your partner is picking up on, whether that person is securely attached or anxiously attached. They might pick up on stuff that you're not even aware of, because you are so disconnected from yourself to a certain extent. And then we can stop this slide and go back to the big screen. And then the last thing is de-escalating your partner is going to be, it's going to save you so much work. So if a avoidantly attached person was able to de-escalate and text back when your partner says, hey, when are you coming back? When are you coming back from work? If you are just able to text them back, they are not going to then berate you with 50 other texts. A text back could say, I think 6 o'clock, I'm really busy right now. Can I get back to you in an hour when I know? And then it's important to circle back. Or if avoidantly attached people, we can get distracted easily. So because our partner isn't the first thing on our mind, it's like that what's in front of us can be on our mind. So it's also good to say, can you text me back in an hour? Can you ask me again in an hour? So again, finding out like where your edge is, where your vulnerability is, and asking your partner to help you with that is going to be super important. And I think that's it. I am like at 8 o'clock on the dot. Now, if you guys want, I can answer questions, and people that want to stay while I answer these questions, I welcome that, but I know that we're at 8 o'clock. And so, so I want to be respectful of whoever needs to leave now too. I hope that this was helpful for you and that I explained this clearly, and gave you guys some tips for helping clients with their attachment styles, but also also helping yourself if you identify with these attachment styles. So let's get to some questions. Okay, avoidant then insecure attachment is sounding to me similar to narcissistic personality disorder. Is that similar or different? It is different. So I get this a lot, that, is narcissistic personality disorder avoidant? What I will say is that narcissistic personality disorders, someone who's narcissistic personality disorder tends to be avoidant. However, an avoidant person does not have to be narcissistic. They don't have to be have delusions of grandeur. Like that's not an avoidant, an avoidantly attached person necessarily. They're greater than self-esteem. They can have self-reflection around that, So somebody asked what the trauma bond is. You can go back to the first video that I did on YouTube and look at it if you want. That was all about the trauma bond. But a narcissistic personality disorder, personality disorders are egosyntonic, so we don't realize that we have an issue. Whereas if you're avoidantly attached or anxiously attached, you could very much realize that you have an issue and want to recover. So that's the big difference I see between attachment style versus a personality disorder. How do people with anxious attachment style push through being repulsed by someone with a secure style? Like, I know I want a healthy relationship, but I get repelled easily. Yes. So there is a difference between being repelled by someone and not. Okay, it's nuanced, right? When you are in a when a securely attached person comes towards you, there will be a sense of attraction. Like, you will know that you are physically attracted to this person, but they might not be your type. Like, you'll be a little perplexed at the fact that you're attracted to them. Like, they're really not my type, but like, there's something about them. They're like confident. Like they're just, I don't know, there's something sexy about them. And that is going to like keep you in the relationship to a certain extent. So you know that you're attracted to them on some level, but there's a repulsion. It's not repulsion, but there is a sense of you being repelled by the fact that they're coming towards you or they're staying. What I say to clients is that if you can get past that part, right, of the relationship where you are repelled by the fact that they adore you and that they're staying, you will enter the next phase of the relationship where you will see that to feel safe is more important to you than to feel like wildly, crazily, nervous system hijack attracted to somebody. You'll still be attracted to the securely attached person, but it won't be in the same way, right, that you're attracted to what you're used to. So if you can get past the repelling phase, you will come out the other side, right, around staying and seeing all the fruits of your labor of tolerating what it feels like to be repelled by someone who wants to be with you. And there can be a lot of work you can do within yourself around why you find that repelling. That's really going to help in that. Please expand upon anxious attachment and how it may relate to domestic violence. Okay, so anxiously attached, as well as abuse. So we're already coming from a place of less than, right? So that we're already primed to a certain extent to devalue ourselves, and also because we are boundaryless, because we tend to be boundaryless. So other people, another way I like to talk about being boundaryless is if somebody yells an opinion, right, and it's louder than ours, we take it on as true. So being boundaryless, we are going to be much more vulnerable to us questioning ourselves and our intuition and whether we deserve space in a room and whether we are right. So the fact that we have less than self-esteem and the fact that we take on other people's feelings, emotions as our responsibility to fix, and that somehow we're responsible for that person having emotions, you can see how we are primed. We are much more vulnerable to an abusive relationship. And that if we get in an abusive relationship, it's going to be much harder for us to get out of, because it's fortifying all those things around fear of abandonment. And now the abuser has also, you know, as you guys know, like abuse is not just, you know, if somebody punched us in the face on the first date, of course we're going to leave. But abuse is systemic, right? So it happens over time. And so it primes us to not leave. So now the abuser has made us feel even more less than, made us feel like nobody can will love us, right? And so we get even more scared of abandonment, hence the perpetuation of abuse, right? So I would say that anxiously attached people are much more vulnerable to being in an abusive relationship than perhaps an avoidantly attached person, and definitely a securely attached person is. It also depends on like how slow the drip of toxicity is within the abuse. You know, how slow are you groomed into thinking you're worth less, and that he or she can hit me and it'll be okay, or I can't leave. So I'll get to one more, and then I think that we got to cut it just so you guys can all get to sleep. Or I mean, I can get to more, but I feel badly. What do you think of the attachment issues around adoption at birth for babe later in life for birth mother? Oh my gosh, what a great question. I believe that there's going to be attachment issues. So here's the thing with adoption is that let's say that baby is adopted at birth and she is given to loving parents, and he or she has a secure attachment to those parents and all of that. There is a wound. No matter how loving her adopted parents are, there will be a wound there when around abandonment, right? Now, that's not to say that they'll end up having a insecure attachment style, but they might have to work through that trauma around the abandonment at birth. Does that make sense? Okay, you guys, thank you so much for coming. And again, you can find me on social media, Monroe Wellness. If you want to hear talks every week, I'm at Recovery 2.0. And I hope to hear from you guys. Get in touch with me, heather@monroewellness.com. Let me know other topics that you would love to hear. I'm open to everything. So tell me what you'd like to hear, and I will try and make it happen. And I will see you in 3 weeks when I give another webinar. So see you guys soon. Bye.